Welcome to OkState Daily. Casey Porter here. So glad you decided to tune in tonight. We have a very, very special guest. As we tour into Oklahoma State's next opponent, we bring in Parker Ainsworth of Locked on Cougs, insider for the Houston Cougars. So, hey, Parker, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me on, man. It's good to talk. I wish this could turn some type of rivalry or something. We call it like the Dana Bowl or something. I don't know what you want to call it, but I'm excited to talk about it.
No doubt. Okay, so first of all, obviously, Dana Holgorsen was in Stillwater in 2010, and he brought that air raid, that Texas Tech air raid, to Oklahoma State. Of course, Oklahoma State, I think he probably took some things from Mike Gundy, too, as far as the run game goes. So talk about Dana Holgorsen to begin with.
Broad. No, there's a lot of different hot takes on Dana Holgorsen right now. I think a lot of people think he's fighting for his job. I think there are a lot of people, frankly, that are worried that worried might be the wrong word. I think there are a lot of people that think if they don't make a bowl game, he might be his last games. I will say it's been interesting to watch him in this iteration because he came to Houston before Oklahoma State, right? He was the offense coordinator at Houston before he went there, and that was the air raid. That was Case Keenum. That was 50 points a game. And this has been a little bit different. It's not been the same kind of electric offense necessarily. There's been games like that last year. Clayton Tune and Tank Dell did a lot, but this year it's been an adjustment period, and the offense does not have the high flying. It's not the 4 wides, 4 verts kind of stuff over and over and over again. It's a little bit different. People like Dana, people hate Dana. I think it's always more than just the head coach, even though we want to blame the head coach, right, when stuff goes wrong. So that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, I've had a chance to sit in clinics when he was here at Oklahoma State. He came to the football clinics. I had a chance to actually listen to him talk about his air raid concepts, and he was a very interesting dude. But, yeah, matter of fact, I remember, when he was at Houston very well, the Case Keenum team, him and Tyrone Carrier, came to Oklahoma State and actually upset Oklahoma State. I believe that was like in 2009 or something like that. I can't remember the exact year, but I remember that very well.
Yeah, 09 sounds right. Dana gives Gundy a lot of credit, though, for his growth as a coach. I think that, it doesn't seem like a long time that he was there, but he talks about it often. He talks about Mike Gundy a lot.
Yeah, so, he got to Oklahoma State, and then they kind of went on vacation, and they got together like, hey, how can we incorporate the air raid plus what I want to do running the game, like at a lake house or something like that. Came up with the concepts of actually the diamond, the diamond formation. Dana Holgorsen, Mike Gundy, they actually invented that. Nobody the inverted wishbone. But, hey, talk about Donovan Smith. Of course, the last week Oklahoma State, they played a transfer quarterback, and John Rice Plumlee transferred from Ole Miss. So, hey, the last thing we want to see is another Division One, recruit, a transfer into Houston. Donovan Smith, and out of Texas Tech. So Oklahoma State has a Texas Tech transfers too at quarterback. So talk about Donovan.
Yeah, and I think Texas Tech at times this year wish they had one of the two back. I will say Donovan has played really well for chunks of the game. It feels like each week, with exception of like maybe Kansas State when we got kind of run out. Kansas State's really good. The deal has been putting a full game together. So like against UT Austin, he had a really bad first quarter, but almost led a comeback in the second, third, fourth, right? Against Baylor, he had a good first and fourth quarter, but kind of tried to give the game away there in the middle and stuff like that. It's funny because his numbers look pretty strong. He's completing over 70% of his balls in most games. Touchdown interception ratio, I think, is better than we thought it was going to be coming in. He had some turnover problems at Tech. Donovan hasn't used his legs quite like I thought he would. He did a little bit more last week against Cincinnati and a little bit more against Baylor. And so maybe that's kind of something he's getting more comfortable with as the year's gone on. But at Tech, he was kind of known as this like bruising runner. Yeah. And we haven't seen a lot of that here. I'm sure you all saw him when you played against Tech, though. So I'm not telling you anything you don't know.
Yeah, 341 yards on the ground for Donovan Smith. He's actually the second leading carrier for Houston, so I was kind of going to get into that. Looks like the pass game definitely kind of a short pass game. Donovan Smith, you mentioned that he completes a lot of passes, but it seems like it's kind of that short pass game. He averages about 6 yards a completion, so it looks to me like it's the short pass game and then a little bit of run game to go with it.
Yeah, a lot of like short stick routes and slants and stuff like that. not your traditional, student body right kind of screens, but those kind of throws for sure. And truthfully, again, this is a team moving from the American Athletic Conference to the Big 12. Part of that, if I'm being honest with you, is just getting the ball out before you get hit, right? I mean, group of 5 offensive linemen, and I think our left tackle may be a pro, but across the board, you got 5 offensive linemen that are going from blocking Memphis and Tulsa to going to blocking OkState and OU, right? Like all of a sudden, it's a very different kind of vibe.
And it's week after week after week after
every week. Every week. So it's been, knock on wood, been healthy up front all year. It's just a very different challenge for those guys.
What has been the coolest thing about being in the Big 12 this year?
So it's obviously, like, I'm not going to give away my age necessarily, but people older than me remember playing Southwest Conference games, right? For me, this is like the first time of that. This is the first experience with any of that, right? Where like we get to play Baylor and Texas and Tech and TCU and they all count, and it's a very different thing. The in-state rivalries have been a ton of fun. Oklahoma State's, I mean, as a neighboring state and an old Big 12 member, not any different really. It's it stinks to see the guys go to the SEC or whatever, but still getting to play the guys like the Techs, the Baylors, the TCUs, the local like Power 5 teams is a big jump for getting to play. We had to schedule non-conference games at Rice and UTSA to get stay in Texas before. We had 4 games in the city of Houston to open the season, right? So those things are a big change. And one I really like, into like talk a little bit of trash at the water cooler, like those, like, because you don't know. I mean, it's hard to know someone who went to Temple, right? Living in Texas, it's a whole different thing.
Yeah. What would you say has been the most difficult thing as far as joining the Big 12 for this club?
Obviously the level of competition, like you said, week in, week out.
Has it been as eye-opening as you thought it would be, or has it been a little bit easier maybe?
Well, I didn't have like these like crazy I mean, I thought they would win more games they did this year, but I didn't think that they're like, I don't know what the conference like that. I think the thing that's been interesting to see is like, that lull in the second or third quarter, or that 2 bad drives in a row to open up after the halftime or whatever. Those really hurt you a lot more in this league than the American. In the American, there were games, whether it was Cincinnati the year they had Ritter, or Central Florida the year that they went undefeated. Like there were always games like that, but week in, week out to have that kind of a challenge. There's not a whole lot of get right games on the schedule necessarily. And frankly, it makes you see like why the SEC, I feel like the second or third to last week of the season, they always have, all those schools have cupcakes, right? You kind of get why very quickly.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, so Houston, Oklahoma State, I believe Houston is Oklahoma State has more alumni in Houston than any other city in the United States. Do you see any kind of presence of Oklahoma State fans down there at all?
It's really such a big city. And so, like, centrally located, you get, like, all of the Big 12. Frankly, a big concern for the athletic department coming into the season was, how do we make sure the people buying tickets are going to wear red on Saturdays? And they had all kinds of tricks and stuff trying to do that. But, like, you see a lot of Oklahoma State orange and Texas orange. You see a lot of Oklahoma stuff. You see a lot of TCU stuff, frankly, a lot of LSU stuff, a lot of Aggie stuff. It's just a big city located in the middle of all that. And with Houston spending 30 years not in the Power 5, there was a lot of like kind of seeping in from outside almost, if you will, from just every school's got T-shirt fans in the Power 5. Houston hadn't been there yet, right? So
no doubt. So is there any chance that the city of Houston could be mainly Big 12 instead of mainly SEC?
It's going to so LSU's got a presence, A&M's got a presence, and Texas has a presence. I will say that I think the big switch will be and this is maybe me being personally biased, but if Houston itself can become a good Big 12 program, and then you have good local games, right, that changes the dynamic a little bit. If it's just the place where Big 12 alums go see their teams come through, that's not really the same kind of thing. I do think that there's a natural recruiting hotbed, obviously, in your backyard to all of that. And if you can keep the kids home, I mean, that's when Tom Herman had Houston in the top 10 in the country, that was all he was doing, right? That was all he was doing, was keeping kids home. I
appreciate it. You beat by the way that year.
People still post people like clobbering Baker and stuff like that as their profile picture. I mean, people are so very much excited about that one.
How many people will be there this weekend, you think?
It's senior day, so I want to say more. With how poorly the season's gone, we had in the mid-20s last week in Cincinnati. I I would think senior day and last home game, you got a little bit more of a chance. It's an afternoon game. The real deal for the city of Houston has been this fall, especially the competition for like what people are going to go do. Like the Rockets are better than people realized. When baseball is going on, the Astros are happening, the Texans, and it's like, if I only have $300 to spend on entertainment this weekend, am I going to go spend it on that? I would hope senior day in the final game is a good turnout. I'd imagine we're still in the 20s. The stadium on seats 40, so 20 can feel pretty full. But I would imagine you're looking at somewhere in the 20s, just because it's been a disappointing year.
Houston fans optimistic at all about the Oklahoma State game, this especially after seeing how Oklahoma State, went down to a former American Conference opponent in UCF like they did last weekend?
Well, I got to be honest, I was a lot more optimistic. I was optimistic early in the year when I saw the South Alabama game, and then I was like, oh, what's going on up there? They finally picked a quarterback, and then Central Florida happened. Like, wait a second, maybe we got a chance. I watched the Central Florida and the South Alabama game and getting ready to talk about the game myself on Locked On Cougs, just to figure out, like, what are those teams doing that's successful? And I don't think it's impossible to replicate. I do think it's like a lot of, bluntly gambling. They took deep shots, right? Yeah. And they went for, they played the ball in the air and went for interceptions. If you mess those up, they turned into touchdowns the wrong way very quickly, right? Yeah. And so, I think that it's going to come down to making those kinds of gambles. I don't think if it's a blowout, I think it's Oklahoma State blowout. I don't think Houston blows them out. I tell my audience all the time, though, I always talk myself into by Friday there's a way Houston wins this game.
Absolutely.
And I've been wrong more than I'm right this year. But I'm watching all week, finding ways to poke holes in it. And I think there are. I mean, every team's got holes. It's just, can Houston exploit? Can Houston take the ball deep? Right. Got a great wide receiver room, and I think that they have the speed to do it. They have time to throw the ball.
Yeah, I noticed that former Oklahoma State Cowboy Stefan Johnson is like your fourth leading receiver, and he was one of the most talented young receivers at OSU last year. We hated to lose him. So seeing that he's down the list quite a bit as far as one of your leading receivers, that tells me how good your receiver room is.
Yeah, and we're going to be without our top guy. Matthew Golden suffered an injury, injured a toe. I can't tell if it was in the Baylor game at practice afterwards, but they didn't announce it till almost the full week later. And he's your top guy. He'll probably be a pro in a couple of years. Yeah. Joseph Manjack is originally a USC kid, Southern California USC. He transferred back home. You mentioned Boogie Johnson. He's stepped up and played a lot more since Golden went out. Sam Brown at one point, I think he still might be leading the Big 12 in receiving yards. Mm-hmm. And then there's a fun little, 5'10" slot receiver named Dalton Carnes, who was originally a walk-on, has earned a scholarship, and is really playing well. A lot of speed. And so, again, the way that Oklahoma State's lost this season has been by getting beat over the top on big plays. And so, again, I'm talking myself into. They've got the speed to do it. If they can block and then keep Donovan Smith upright and let him throw it, they've got the speed to get over the top. They just got to complete the ball.
Yep. Okay, I got to know all about Stefan Johnson's catch on, I believe it was West Virginia. Last play of the game. I loved it because I thought the West Virginia quarterback, I thought he boasted a little bit too much. It kind of rubbed me a little bit wrong the way he ran off the field with it kind of a little bit too much look at. And I like the celebration part of it, but to me that one just rubbed me a little bit wrong. So whenever you got to come right back and throw the Hail Mary to Stefan Johnson, a former Oklahoma State Cowboy, I enjoyed that moment.
Well, and the funny thing is that you mentioned the celebration from quarterback Green. And,
that's what got it. He got a 15-yard penalty.
15-yard penalty on the kickoff kind of set up the Hail Mary. I would back up a step, though. I think Houston should have won the game before that. Green throws a 50-yard pass of his own to score with 12 seconds left, and that would have won the game for West Virginia. Yeah. Frankly, if they'd held him to just a field goal, they'd gone to overtime, right? And so West Virginia takes the lead, and Houston gets the ball back. But because of that penalty, like you mentioned on the celebration, he took his helmet off the field. If you didn't watch it for an Oklahoma State person, on the field, he takes his helmet off, starts chanting at the student section while he's on the field still, right?
It rubbed me wrong. I can tell you that. Yeah.
Well, and it cost him the game because they kick off 15 yards back. Houston gets a decent return, gets to about midfield, and wheels back and throws a jump ball to the end zone, in which Joseph Manjack is more like a 6'4" receiver, jumps up and tips the ball, the pile falls, and Boogie Johnson just snags it as he's walking in the end zone.
Boogie is Stefan for Oklahoma State fans. That's how we know.
Sorry. We've been calling him Boogie all year. But Stefan Johnson takes in the end zone, and it was literally like, because the camera angles, stuff like that, you're just like, wait, does he really have the ball like that? Yeah. And he just holds it up, and it's like the crowd erupts, storms the field, people go nuts. It was Houston's first Big 12 win. You mentioned the Dana Holgorsen Bowl. That was West Virginia, obviously, so there's some personal ties there for Dana. He also really upset them on his way out of West Virginia, so I think that was almost a little bit of a, if I think that had to do with Green's celebration there at the end. All the things coming together there at the end. It was a Thursday night game, a weird situation, but it was a heck of a way to get your first Big 12 win, and they were the first new Big 12 team to beat an old Big 12 team. I think since then, obviously, I mean, Central Florida did last week, but I think everyone but Cincinnati has beaten an old Big 12 team at this point.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, so a couple questions for me. We're joined by Parker Ainsworth of Locked On Cougs. That network, that's a great network. There's Locked On, just about every team that you could want. Watch several of your shows, Parker. You do just a wonderful job. Matter of fact, I go officiate at night basketball games, and I usually listen to I've listened to about 3 or 4 of your podcasts on the way to games and on the way back, and they're absolutely fantastic. Listen to your whole spiel about Jimbo Fisher and how it's kind of advantageous for Texas A&M to get rid of their coach now, because that gives them the head start on getting a head coach in that area. So I thought that was a really, really cool perspective. So I've really enjoyed your show. You do simply a fantastic job. Okay, so Parker Ainsworth again on the show. One more question about Dana Holgorsen. This is kind of 2 questions in one. Number 1, does he still live in a hotel room? And 2, how many Red Bulls a day is he drinking now?
I don't know how many Red Bulls a day he's drinking. He is sponsored. There's a picture of him on a throne of them. I hope it's not all those every day. I don't think he lives in a hotel room because he's not a very big social media person, but when they beat Rice a couple years back, he took a picture of himself with a trophy outside by some pool outside of what looked like a very nice house. He might have waited till he got the extension to get that house, but he does not live in a hotel room anymore.
Difference between offensive coordinator pay and head coach pay, right?
Definitely.
Okay, and the Houston Cougars defeat Oklahoma State this weekend if
they got time to throw the football. I know I've sounded like a broken record at this point, but I think they've got the speed at wideout to do it. Frankly, if they get ahead by throwing the football, it kind of can take Ollie Gordon out of the game, and I think that's really the only way to take him out of the game is to make it a pass game. He's really, really good, folks. And so I think that all has to work in their favor. That means they come out early and be on their P's and Q's from the start of the game as well. But I think that, again, there is a path to victory here, but those are easier things for me and you to talk about than to go out and do. It's a lot of violence up front for those guys.
Yep. Parker Ainsworth, I appreciate you joining us so much. And by the way, welcome to the Big 12. And that basketball team y'all got is real, real, real good.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about basketball season when we see each other, because that's a fun part of the conference.
All right, thanks, Parker.